We're going to close out with a bang. We've got an awesome panel here with some industry leaders, some thought leaders, some amazing folks that I don't even feel like I should be up here asking the questions, but you'll see that once I start asking them. I'm Tyler here. You guys all know me, and I'll let these other guys introduce themselves. Troy's already been on a panel, but this is the Heatpunk's Manifesto. We're going to talk a little bit about decentralization, why that's important, energy FUD, refuting some things like that, sovereignty in the digital realm, and how that all relates to why we're here with bringing hashrate back home. So, to Troy.
Yeah, hi, I'm Troy Cross.
I'm Bitcoin Mechanic.
Matt Hill with Start9.
Fantastic. So I think that nodes are still pretty much decentralized. They're at homes. They haven't conglomerated into institutional operations where all the nodes are, but hashrate has. Why is it important to bring hashrate back to the homes and the businesses to decentralize hashrate? Is it even important? Is it important for us to kind of undermine the status quo of these mega mining operations? Is that even a necessary thing? We're all chipper and happy about it, eager to chat about it today, saving our heating costs. But what does it mean for the importance of the Bitcoin network as a whole? That's to anyone.
I'll take it up. I think there are a lot of different attack vectors, and as Bitcoiners, we should all be paranoid and thinking about them all the time. And this is just one, but it is one that affects centralized hashing. And it comes from a conversation I had with Carol House, who held a bunch of positions in the Biden administration. Now she's like looking for work, I think. I saw her on LinkedIn. But Carol House said this at a talk that I was at Princeton, but then later I had multiple conversations with her directly where she talked about our need to censor transactions in Bitcoin. And particularly she was focused on Iran, the Lazarus Group in North Korea, and censoring child sexual material or payment for it. And she's like, these are clear cases, and your community needs to get behind it, and you guys need to take care of this problem. You need to learn how to censor transactions. And what she said, her exact words were, you need to get all of the relevant players in a room together and figure out how to do this. And if you don't do it, we're doing it for you. And I had the next panel at Princeton, and the question that was the name of our panel was like, it was called, if Bitcoin is the answer, what is the question? And I said, I know what it is now. It's like if you were to try to design a money for which you couldn't get everybody in a room to decide to censor it, what would you do? And Bitcoin is the answer to that question. There isn't a room, and there can't be. But what Carol talked about was how the government would attack Bitcoin. She didn't put it that way, but how they would do it for us if we didn't do it for ourselves. And that was to tell miners through the Treasury not to include forbidden addresses in blocks. And of course, people in the audience were like, yeah, but they're already doing that with like Ethereum, and things still get on the chain. And then her response was, yeah, but we could also tell you not to mine on top of those transactions. And that's a problem, right? That's a problem, because that's just saying like you can't mine Bitcoin, basically. And how do we, so that's, in my mind, that's the attack. There are many salient attacks, and there are many ways to go after Bitcoin mining and Bitcoin. But that one was a real one I heard from somebody in multiple positions inside the White House. And she was serious about it. So it's pretty easy to ring up the CEOs of leading Bitcoin mining companies and get that done. I don't think any CEO would say no, and it goes not only for the US, but for companies that the US can pressure in other countries. The Treasury pressures people all over. So the long road for me, the importance of decentralizing hash rates, many things, but in terms of security, I want it to be censorship resistant. That's why I'm in Bitcoin. And I see a threat of censorship for centralized hashing, and I think we can solve that by decentralizing hash.
Yeah, so I thought I disagreed with what you were saying for the most part, but it sounds like when you summed it up at the end, it sounds like we might be in agreement, because we all kind of laughed at the idea of someone being in a position to censor transactions. And the trouble is, I wish I could laugh at it too, but we're not really in the landscape. There's expectation versus reality with Bitcoin mining. And unfortunately, decentralizing hash, and I don't mean to be a bummer, but it's already one of the best aspects and most decentralized elements of Bitcoin anyway. There are hashes all over the place. The problem is hashing is not the only component of mining. There's also template construction, and that is where censorship actually happens. If all of the hash rate is going through, let's just be honest, 2 pools, it's all just Foundry or it's all just Bitmain and their subsidiaries, right? We know that all the small pools now, because of miners' high time preference and insistence on being paid out via FPPS, that basically that's just not sustainable for small pools. So they all have to basically get Bitmain bankrolling the whole thing, and then as a result, Bitmain calls the shots, and that's why every brains block you see contains a bunch of ant pool accelerated transactions, and that's just the trend. That's the unfortunate reality of Bitcoin mining. In Bitcoin, it trends towards centralization of what it is those pools will do as a result of being in that position. And that means they decide what goes in the chain, right? So for that woman to come along, she's either like level 1 Bitcoin or level 3 Bitcoin. At level 2, we sort of learn, oh, that's not really possible to censor transactions. But on level 3 Bitcoin, you realize, oh, actually, there's only really 2 companies in charge of what goes in the chain and what doesn't. So decentralizing hash is great, but it's already the most decentralized element of Bitcoin mining. What you need to decentralize is the decision around what actually goes in the chain. And at the moment, that is basically just 2 companies. So breaking that up, like to plug, obviously, Ocean, where I work, the point of Ocean was we need miners to be responsible for what goes in the chain, not pools. And within months of launching, we made the Datum protocol, which did what was supposed to be, had been talked around with Stratum v2 for like 11 years now or something. We did it in a few months, and now there's actually blocks in the chain that are part of a pooled thing. And you're never going to fix mining by saying, hey, everyone's got a lotto mine, we can't pool anymore. It's a reality. Miners are going to pool. So you need to be like, how can we minimize the role of a pool in that context? And Datum did that. So miners are now pooling together, which they're always going to do, but they're the ones making the blocks. So when we have these complete asshats come and complain about the contents of blocks found on Ocean's pool, I'm like, here is the Bitcoin address of the miner that made the block you don't like. Go and complain to him. It's nothing to do with the pool, and that's the position a pool should be in. And it's also the position if that lady was to come to Ocean and say, hey, you've got to censor this and you've got to censor that, we'll be like, we literally can't. Like the best we can do is on a share by share basis, of which there are millions every minute. We can say, oh, you didn't like that one. All right, we won't credit that guy in the next block we find with some of the reward. It won't even be noticeable. It's not practical to do it. So they really just do need to go after the miners. And that's a much harder game of whack-a-mole to play because for every pool, there's 10,000 miners. So, that's a realistic way to actually bring some resilience into the system.
We're on our way there because we have our Datum server up here at the space.
Oh, you do?
And we turned it on maybe, 10 days ago? And we sent it out, the info's on the whiteboard over there, to all the Heatpunks, everybody hashing for heat. And I think we have like 16 petahash using it right now. So
nice.
It's pretty good.
Are you Lotto mode or are you using Ocean?
Lotto mode for this weekend. But
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you're exactly right. So we need to decentralize block template construction, but something I want to expand upon is we've just been talking about getting hash rate into homes with heating systems. It's kind of like a roundabout way, right? They're going to save some money. There's some subsidy. There's some rebate. They need to be plug and play. There's all these challenges we have to overcome. How do we balance that with doing Bitcoin the right way, so to speak, with a fully sovereign stack up where you have your own node? Does a node integrate, this is a question for Matt, right, into the system? Does the Datum protocol integrate running Ocean? And what's that trade-off in terms of usability, integratability, service, plug and play, but also remaining true to our core beliefs and our mission to promote Bitcoin and digital freedom in the modern age?
So our philosophy at Start9 is to be we have the fortunate position of being the extremists in the room in almost any talk. Our goal is to make it possible for an individual. Not everyone's going to always act as an individual. They may act as a family or as a small business or a larger corporate entity, whatever it is. but to push as much power to the edge of the network as possible, or to at least make it possible, right? So if an individual wants to set up a home miner, either for the sake of heating their home or playing the lottery, which I think are the two, practical use cases of home mining at the moment, that they should be able to do that, and they should be able to do it without someone being able to stop them, and that they should be able to construct the block templates that they prefer and mine to the pool that they want, or to no pool at all, or to a pool that they themselves, spun up and others are mining to, in this sort of federated pool structure, that they should be able to do that. And I don't just mean by the laws of physics, I mean by the limitations of technical acumen. And so our mission is to make it possible for people to be as independent and sovereign in their entire computing life, which would include mining in the way that I just described, without needing, the traditional requirements of a Linux systems administrator or enormous amounts of spare time. So it's basically just making edge computing or decentralized computing, or what we call sovereign computing, accessible to a normal person. And part of that would be home mining in the fully right way.
Can I just jump on that? I find this mining was kind of new to me. Like I call them like the hodlers, the Bitcoiners that just buy and hold, and maybe they eventually buy a BitX or something, but they're not part of the mining ecosystem. And it's like the left and right legs of Bitcoin. You have mining and you have the rest of it. And the culture shock coming into mining was really, really surprising to me, and not in a good way. And not to bash anyone here, because I'm not just blowing smoke up people's asses. This is the kind of niche in mining where everyone has a great mentality. But generally, the people with all the hash rate do not have the kinds of standards that are just taken for granted in Bitcoin. Like, if I told you that I have this new decentralized money and 21 million, all that stuff, by the way, here's this closed source thing that you have to run to be, like, no one would run Bitcoin Core if it was closed source. No one's going to do that. And these projects like Start9 and things like that make it accessible for people to use this stuff, they're a massive part of it. And the whole fork wars was fought on the premise of everyone needs to be able to run nodes, and we need to be able to verify this stuff ourselves. When it comes to the mining space, it's like, yeah, everything's closed source and run by one company that has been caught putting backdoors in their stuff over and over again. And yeah, we just try not to think about it. And you get these projects like BitX, which come so late in the story that they have everything right, ideally, but the power, the David versus Goliath thing is so out of whack with it. Like, you need hundreds of thousands of BitXs to even touch the sides when it comes to competing with all of this completely closed infrastructure. And at Ocean, we have pretty large miners now, and getting miners on board with hundreds of petahash that don't actually know how to run a Bitcoin node, and they definitely don't know how to make stuff talk to it. And it's just a frightening amount of illiteracy. And because, there's a guy out there with, 500,000 sats stacking who runs a node already and has a cold card or whatever. There's a miner out there with like $10 million worth of equipment, all of it closed source, that he doesn't know how to use, with like one Windows laptop managing it all. And it's like, dude, the balance is just not there, right? Like, mining is important, and it just became ignored, and it's kind of a dirty secret.
So, true. But I think that we need to consider Bitcoin's decentralization. Obviously, I'm sure most people here do, outside of the context of just mining, right? Like, mining is one political constituency in the Bitcoin network, right? You have node operators, exchanges. You have, I should say economic node operators, people who are using their nodes. You have developers. You have platforms like Start9 that make it possible. And so, like you said, mining tends towards centralization. The incentives kind of, make it necessary to a degree, until we come up with the killer app for home mining, and like everyone on Earth is home mining with massive amounts of hash. There's going to emerge these massive centralized entities that just have resource and IP, benefits. And hoarding capabilities and massive amounts of capital that just kind of emerge as the dominant one. So a way to hold them accountable, right, a way to offset the ongoing centralization force in mining is not only by trying to continually decentralize mining, but to get nodes in every home so that if the miners step out of line, the node operators can fork away and turn all their mining equipment into, worthless hunks of metal.
Yeah, that's definitely good. There's another cruder solution like that you're going to hate, that everyone's going to hate, but who remembers the best thing that ever happened if you were a home miner? It was China making mining illegal. And suddenly you got twice as many sats overnight for your electricity. It was incredible. And like the help that an anti-fragile system can have by an aggressive government forcing everyone to go underground is so underrated, but it's just not a thing that anyone is masochistic enough to ever vote for. But like, I don't know if you ever saw that account, Bitcoiners for Trudeau, and like all the people that were supporting like Kamala Harris and all that. Like, this stuff works so well. And like, but conversely, like when you get pro-crypto administrations like Trump and all that stuff, it does nothing but damage to the ecosystem. I don't know if anyone has like really clocked this yet, but
it makes the number go up.
It makes the number go up a bit for a while, but it's
I'm
it's
with
a
you.
fair
I'm
weather friend.
just saying
Like,
why it happens.
yeah,
Everyone roots for it because the number goes up.
I'm just not American. So when if America made Bitcoin mining illegal and all the people that I'm in friendly conversations with in my sales capacity at Ocean that I try not to say bad things about, especially in public forums, but if all the publicly traded Bitcoin miners in America just went offline because of hostile political environment, all that would mean is all you guys make more money. Like, sure, the price is going to drop a bit and it might sort of cancel itself out, but ultimately it would just strengthen the network, right? That is the anti-fragile concept. The more you throw at it, the stronger it gets. And I would love to see it, but again, I'm not American. I understand the stress of living in America and having a hostile environment for Bitcoin.
So, Troy, to make the network more anti-fragile, say we had this killer product and it was a heating system that had a full node and it was constructing its own block templates but still pool mining so they could get their rebate for their heat. Do we need to kind of infiltrate through blissful ignorance? I'm really curious as it relates to Anadro, right, in California. I mean, I'm just making assumptions here, but it feels like that population of people in that part of the United States probably wouldn't love a lot of the things if they knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the earlier panel, but Anadro kind of first of all played down that it was Bitcoin mining because it wasn't working marketing-wise. People didn't want a Bitcoin miner in their house, in their garage or outside, and so they were okay with high-performance compute or whatever other buzzwords people wanted to use there. And actually, VCs are kind of the same way. They want you to be like, you have an off-taker. You have something that monetizes. You know what I mean? Even for many VCs, like Bitcoin is a scary word in the energy space, right? So yeah, it's that sly roundabout way. You build a product that is actually doing something, and only later do people really figure out what's going on. I don't know. Hestia is doing that for heating. They don't mention heat anywhere in their stuff or Bitcoin anywhere in their stuff. It's just like a discounted heater. But I have concerns about this because if we just bury it, we will decentralize geographically hash rate without decentralizing hash rate, right? Like if Anadro controls all the hash rate and it's like we get all the residential solar in California gets this new discounted product. Anadro has own subminers. Anadro is the one like actually mining. I think they do use Ocean. I'm sure they do. Hey, that's one miner. They're one miner that has boxes everywhere, right? And when I think about the big picture here, I think where's hash rate going long term? Ultimately, physics wins, and economics wins, and ultimately fiat loses, right? So I think about pockets of energy that are wasted around the world. Bitcoin mining is going to go to all those places. Pockets of heat that is dumb heating going to be replaced with smart heating where possible, right? So that's got to be where hash rate goes physically, and it's not there now. And so that's the migration of hashing, the physical process that I see inevitably happening. Nothing can stop that, as far as I can see. But will that be decentralized hash? separate question. Only if we empower people and give them ownership and give them control. And that requires us to scale some level of intelligence. Who is it? Rob was telling me intelligence doesn't scale. Or you mentioned earlier, like that you regress to the mean as you grow. Right? Your audience regresses to the mean. So we need a product that allows sovereignty, autonomy, ownership to scale of hashing without intelligence having to scale, right? That has to happen in order for this physical economic process to drive the true decentralization of hash. Because, when you think about it, it's really awesome. I think in the future, because I do believe that solar is growing faster than anything else, I think as the sun, or as the earth turns, right, the hash rate will spike in the parts of the world that are facing the sun, because that's where we have excess energy, right? Isn't that wild? And like where we have wind, it's kind of like a return to the 18th century or something. The sailing boats, like when the wind blows, they move, but they're miners and they're hashing. Because we're gonna live on only the cheapest energy. The cheapest energy will be wasted energy. The wasted energy in the energy system we're moving into will be intermittent. So we will have, and geographically dependent on these physics factors. All of this is freaking exciting to me as a Bitcoiner, and it at least on the physical side, it undoes this trend that we've seen. I've got a piece coming out in Bitcoin Magazine, the next print edition. It's about economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. It's about Adam Smith's original treatment of that in a pin factory, where basically you expect any industry to scale because there are many advantages, including finance, including specialized machinery, specialized labor. That happened in the history of Bitcoin, really with the turn to ASICs. It didn't really happen before, but as soon as we had a specialized chip, everything else is predictable. It's predictable that we want to protect those markets. It's predictable that we would want to protect IP as we're pouring effort and work into gathering knowledge of how to hash more efficiently, right? All this is very predictable, and it's the opposite of what you want in Bitcoin. So you've got kind of this Adam Smithization of an industry pushing you towards centralization physically. And in the other direction, you have physics of energy and the physics of heat demand, because heat doesn't scale, right? The demand for heat doesn't scale. So this is the great battle that we're like in. Anyway, I'm hopeful that we can win the battle, because I think physics and economics wins out. But I want to throw out a cautionary note that we need to think about how winning on the physics front, we're not all still just using two pools. Then like, who cares? Who freaking cares? Or, machines are distributed all over the place, but one of you has figured out the magic recipe to get it to scale, and good for you. Your company is 1,000 times what it is today. But wait a minute, do you own all that hash rate? Like, have you decentralized anything?
Yeah, it's the sovereignty of the miner is paramount, and mining sovereignty has just not been a thing for a long time. So even the term solo mining, there's been some unpleasant infighting between some of the people with the right intentions in the space. So a lot of solo mining is characterized as just people lotto mode, right? But still, someone like CK Pool or something like that is running a server on your behalf. You still aren't running a node, and you still, if you find a block, don't tell the network about it permissionlessly. You still need someone else's permission. So Luke, in his classic style to refuse to cede linguistic territory in any context ever, will use the word in a way that no one else uses it, which is solo mining means using your own node, which is pretty agreeable, but no one actually defines it that way. They're all just like, hey, I'm solo mining, and yeah, well, you're solo hashing, but you're not mining, and that's the crux of it. We need miners, and there's several aspects to it, but I'd like to come back to some of the things you were saying there, because this is a different point, but there are economic externalities was a point raised years ago in talks by Andreas. I remember watching like in 2014 when they were talking about what's a useful, let's reinvent Bitcoin, but make the proof of work do something useful, like fold proteins or calculate prime numbers or something like that. And Andreas's point back then, which was always totally correct, was if you do that, you create another element of chaos in Bitcoin because if prime numbers are more valuable one day, then more people mine, and it's got nothing to do with Bitcoin itself, right? And it adds these externalities always just add chaos to an already pretty chaotic and volatile system, so it's not desirable. And mining, unfortunately, like there's the white paper definition, which you were talking about in the second, you made 2 points, and your second point was, that's the naive perspective. You read the white paper and it's like, right, the guy with the cheapest electricity wins over the guy with the more expensive electricity. And it would just be so great if that was how anything worked today, but it isn't, right? Because it's how much privilege do you have? How inside of the regulatory moat are you? Because we've watched these, and then there's just the existence of publicly traded companies, not to bash on them more, but when Brian Armstrong will be like, he'll buy a bunch of some shitcoin, and then because he's going to list it on Coinbase next week, and he knows that's going to make the price work out. That's the ICO sort of approach, right? We know that if a coin gets listed on Coinbase, it shoots up in price. So everyone invests around that, all the insider trading that goes on. That's a scam. And publicly traded companies is a similar kind of scam. There's a bunch of people with a lot of money locked away, behind a certain door that is not allowed to invest in stuff that isn't given AAA ratings. And we know that's like what, some ratings agency will just stamp it with AAA, and then a bunch of pension funds can invest in it. So these guys can't go near Bitcoin. They can't even go near the Bitcoin ETFs necessarily, but they can invest in a publicly traded Bitcoin miner that has, AI and blockchain tech and all these buzzwords. They can invest in that, and they'll never go near Bitcoin. And they can be also completely useless as a miner. But the problem with mining is the prisoner's dilemma never goes away. If they're mining at a complete loss, they still raise the difficulty. And that means you have to compete with them as a home miner. And there's no getting around that. If a bunch of people start mining gold, it's not the same kind of problem if you have your own jurisdiction you're doing it in. But the more hash rate there is, the minute someone is economically irrational because they're mining, because they have some economically external factor that makes it profitable for them, like they can spend $10 million a quarter mining and they can pull in $1 million from the chain in Bitcoin. Doesn't matter. There's still a money printer. There's still people throwing money at investors in products they have no idea about because they hear about blockchain and stuff like that. And they raise the difficulty anyway, and then everyone can't mine anymore. So it's a real pain in the butt. And again, I don't see much more solutions than just, making life difficult for these people, putting them in situations where just go away, go and do AI, go and mine Ethereum, just do something else. Like, you're not adding any security to the space anyway, because to go back to the very first point you made, this is the example I always make. When they shut down Silk Road, the price went down and then it went up a lot because a lot of people were actually really happy to get rid of the connotation with drugs and illegal stuff like that, even though it's basically the point of Bitcoin is peer-to-peer permissionless transactions. If they turn around and went to Foundry, okay, here's a bunch of UTXOs associated with an Iranian Bitcoin exchange and a Russian Bitcoin exchange, you can't include this stuff anymore. How many of these publicly traded guys that are adding security to our network would actually leave over that? Fucking none of them. Let's be honest. They would probably think it was a good idea. They would probably think, oh, this legitimizes Bitcoin. I don't think Michael Saylor would have a problem with it. And I just don't think these guys have the kind of mentality that is what gave us Bitcoin in the first place and definitely how we sustain it. So to me, all it does is ultimately you have to outmine bad actors. That's how Bitcoin works. But if the majority of the hash rate is just captured, regulated stuff that we're just waiting to start doing the things we hope they don't do, then it's already a case of we're under attack and we just have to figure out how to get around it. But I don't know. If there was a point to all that, I don't know what it was.
I think we're in fantastic shape. I gotta lift this guy up every once in a while.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, you're fighting on the mining front. It's not going well. I mean, I get it, but there's lots of fronts to a war.
I will say Ocean's hash rate is growing faster than network difficulty.
That's great.
So there's
you're having some wins. It's good, and I'm rooting for you, and we support you, of course, and we support people, solo mining, playing the lottery, all of it. But that's the mining front, right? Like, I have to keep bringing the larger context into play here. Like, this is miners, economic nodes, wallet developers, core developers, and exchanges. And arguably, broader sort of technological systems that make individuals and businesses able to use all of those things, like what we're working on. That's only just the Bitcoin political constituency ecosystem. Then you actually have meat space, where you have Bitcoiners with lots of money buying out politicians to get the certain laws passed to make solo mining legal, et cetera, et cetera. Like, this is a massive, like, zoom out, historically speaking, battle for the future of money and the information in humanity's information age. And I look at the scorecard right now, and I'm like, just winning, 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 winning. I mean, yeah, I get that the mining front is an important front and that it is bleak at the moment, but hopefully improving due to some home mining systems with heat and lottery and solo mining and client-side block template construction. But I really do try to keep my eye on the broader picture. And yes, there's definitely people out there who are playing the fiat money game and number go up and don't give a crap about what it actually results in their great-grandchildren's freedom or not. But they're going to get rich now, and that's fine, and they'll sell us out the first chance they get and all the rest. But again, they're just one player, one actor in a very large, historic, multi-decade, possibly century-long war. And I think we're in great shape.
I think so too, and I don't mean to be overly pessimistic. I do think there is that. It's my nature, but at the same time, like, you have Greg Maxwell said it best, right? The best thing you can do with Bitcoin to destroy it is to assume it's just a preordained success, and we've won already. He's like, if you do that, it will just fail. So ultimately, there's a lot of relaxed maxis out there that are like, we're going to win, it's fine, and I guess they're right, but I don't appreciate it, because the reason we're going to win is because someone has to go and write protocols and build tech like Start9, and you want to make like user-friendly like servers for plebs to run. Do you know how many years they've been working on Start9, and they're still having to re-architect it like from the ground up like every few years? It's so hard, and someone's actually got to do it. And core developers, who I'm always like, you know, I have a bad relationship with a lot of people in core and have been very critical publicly, but these guys still committing their lives to working hard on this thing. And they can make more money doing something else. They can definitely stack more sats doing something else. So ultimately, someone's got to actually be worried about it and do the work to fix it. Though I believe if you want to just relax and be like, it will be done, it probably will be, and you're probably right.
Strongly agree with that take, and it's my perspective too. And I just wanted to make a point that when people get a miner in their home, we get a lot more advocates, and we get a lot more people who understand. And, you know, layer zero is still people. Ultimately, this protocol doesn't govern itself. Like, we have to decide what code to run on our machines. And so we can't escape the political. And I think that the physical, you know, imagine like the Biden administration proposed a 30% tax on mining in the US. It was actually my former student who proposed that. He was an intern in the, like some, I don't know, in the White House. He was an economic something intern. He was a very good student. And I wrote him afterwards. I was like, because it was listening to a podcast, and I heard them say the name of the guy who proposed this. But they took it up, and I was like, no freaking way. And I checked it out. I messaged him, and I was like, you proposed a 30% tax on Bitcoin mining, and the Biden administration like approved it, and they ran with it. But anyway, inside the Democratic Party, the two people on the podcast were like senior aides to Biden. They were like thrilled with this idea. They thought this was so cool. What a great idea, because they had basically had a budget hole, and this was going to fill it, right? Imagine doing that with distributed hash rate, with lots of the population of Bitcoin miners, like in their homes, like heating their water and their pools and tubs and like what their condos and stuff. Like, it's just ridiculous. That would go nowhere. That would never get started. I don't know what the political situation could be in the U.S. It's insane. But we could definitely have wild swings in the next years. We could have a dynasty coming up, or we could have wild revenge tour 2.0 type institutions, right? And as a Bitcoiner, that's what I'm thinking about. Paranoid. So I think we entrench mining into people's lives and homes as part of HVAC, super boring thing, and then we're just like, oh, Trojan horse them, like when the Greeks come out of the horse, that's us telling everybody, oh, you've already been mining Bitcoin. The government wants to shut your heater down. It's a totally different political game.
And by the way, your heater has a node and it's using Ocean Pool. Like, that is what I'm looking for in the future. I authored this piece, a Heatpunk's Manifesto, and a lot of it was about energy FUD and this Trojan horse model of you can vilify this one thing, this work that we're doing. Is that me? Is that a car? It's a car. It was just a really nice subwoofer in that Silverado out there. But yeah, you can't vilify my heating system. And that's why I'm bullish, Mechanic, is like, I said this earlier today, like, the guys up in the foothills that are all using propane to heat their house, they don't have an HR department. They don't feel squeezed when the hash price dips. They don't need to know any of that stuff. It's simply cheaper to use electric heat. Furthermore, even cheaper to use heat that offers you a rebate, and even better if we can build this killer app, this killer product that is also keeping a record of the entire Bitcoin network on a node, offering sovereign home computing through their own cloud, and then things like using Ocean Pool to construct their own block templates. That's the future that I want to build, and it is completely this roundabout way Trojan horse approach, as Troy summarized it. So I think we should probably move to questions there. That was a fantastic discussion on why I think we should move forward with hash rate heating. I have a cop-out question for Matt Hill.
Cop-out?
Well, when ClearNet?
Well, I mean, you could do it today. It's Alpha 14.
Amazing.
So if you want to test it out, you can test it out. It works. He's running it. It works.
Well, if you're running Datum on Start 9, in the instructions, there's 6 lines you got to copy and paste, and then you can point any miner in the world over ClearNet to your Start 9.
We must have done that, right, Dylan? Nice.
Yeah, he means the button.
Yeah. Okay, so 6
This
lines
is
of copy
exactly
and
my
paste, not a
point.
button, but yeah.
Some guy that's a structural engineer figured it out, so we're good.
Yeah, it's.
I love this. Weren't we talking about this earlier? Like, I want to disrupt central banks, but I don't want to think about anything. I don't want to learn stuff.
Yeah. Not, you're saying intellect doesn't scale very well, but knowledge does. Education helps still.
Here's a question here for Troy. Does Anadro play nicely with Ocean and Datum because if it's intense intermittency, low duty cycle, or does your model work best with FPPS? That's a good question. I'd appreciate some commentary on low duty cycle as it relates to heating.
So Ocean pays out. It's not a proportional payout system because those aren't really a thing. Pool hopping just destroys any pool that you might do that with. And as far as I know, the last pool hoppable pool was like 2011. So Tide's payout model is a derivative of PPLNS, but it's a very long payout window. So if you mine for a while, that ultimately is what gets reflected in your split of the next block. If you are off when we find a block, that is not disproportionately going to be penalized. So it's TLDR is basically it's fine. If you mine with Ocean and you're off 12 hours a day and you're on 12 hours a day, and you look back over the last 6 months and you have 100 terahash, you're just going to look like you had 50 terahash the whole time. So
What if you were on for 5 minutes, off for 5 minutes, on for 5 minutes? Or is it better?
it's just an average hash rate.
It's an average hash
If you have 100 terahash and you're on 50% of the time, your payouts will look like you had 50 terahash. It will just take longer for you to converge because, well, if you keep being on during bad luck and off during good luck, if for some reason you are continually having bad luck, that will suck. But it could just as likely happen the other way up. So it
should average out.
The blockchain is ultimately not predictable. So it's only 10 minutes on average per block if you look back long enough.
Imagine trying to run a business doing this.
Well,
I'd rather just heat my water.
Well, this is your point, though. Like, economic externalities, the one you pointed out, is heat. If you can use heat, then you can pull ahead of all of the other miners because the pubcos don't have any use for the heat. So, like, they get the affinity scam of pension funds that will invest in them despite not knowing anything about Bitcoin. But you get to heat your hot water tank, which you're going to be doing anyway. So, like, it's a competition to see who can justify being lower than everyone else. Like, I don't know. There's something funny about it. Like, it's a race to the bottom, as they often say.
Yeah, it is. And I heard a CEO of a pubco say this from a stage. I feel comfortable repeating it. He said, access to capital is more important than cheap energy. And I was like, that can't be right. And then I thought, I was like, no, I think he knows what he's talking about.
He's
actually.
right. That's how
he's
they
actually
operate.
right. He's right.
That is cheap energy if the money's free.
Right.
No energy.
I mean, essentially, it's like, okay, he has the opportunity to mine at a loss for an extended period of time. That's going to drive out competition. I mean, it's basically like non-competitive business practice internationally, right? It's like subsidizing your business with your government treasury until you bankrupt the industrial base of your competing countries, and then you come back and you control it all and you make it back. So it's a matter of time. But think about it, that capital ultimately wants a return. They're doing cash flow, they're doing analysis. They're looking at discount rates, and I mean, you can't do that forever, right? So we're in a game right now, as I see it, with the easy money, where it's like, if we can punish them, see, you all, if you're miners, you're like, you just hate this talk, but I celebrate when miners suffer, because I'm like, you know what I mean? There goes the bullshit. The bullshit has to end. But it's, you know, it could be us who ends, but it could be that the fiat bullshit ends, because it isn't unlimited, because nature bats last, you know, like, because the fiat thing isn't real. Ultimately, the economy has real inputs.
The market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent.
Exactly. I know the quote, right? But like, okay, it may not be solvent, but I can remain determined for a very long time.
I know what you mean about the cleansing ritual. Like the bear markets, it washes out all the noise. I get it. But here's the thing. Like when Bitmain launched like the S23 or whatever it is that's coming down the pipeline, they'll give the bulk buyers a massive discount on it. They'll give them a head start. So that arrives, all the big guys get it, the hash rate shoots way up, all of the guys at home are left with their S19, I have to underclock it even more now.
Yes.
Like it just,
that's one of the
it's
big,
a hard battle to fight.
When I listed all the economies of scale, and I don't know this as well as, you know, an insider at a pubco would, but yeah, I think one of the biggest is that leverage buying. This is true for every industry, right? When I was just researching economy of scale, like any company that purchases large amounts of inputs to their manufacturing process, like, gets a better deal. Same for power. Same for every aspect of the business. It's like, are there ways that we can capture part of that economy of scale, right? Is there rather than every, you know, pleb bargaining with the supplier of ASICs, like, we can do better than that. If we have the all-in-one box, okay, we can get economies of scale there too. We can bring them to people. Like when it comes to selling services to the grid, we can aggregate our electrical consumption and sell our demand response back to the grid. Right? We have to look for ways to capture the parts of economies of scale that we can get back from one part of the process rather than giving them all up.
That's a really good idea for a collective buying to be able to match the buying power of these single entities, and then you just distribute it to like kind of Dallas Buyers Club style.
We need to dismantle the proprietary mining empire, and we need 100 megawatts of ASICs to not go to one facility using one template, but to go to 100 million different heating devices using their own templates with their own nodes to use that same scale.
I would love to see it. But I mean, here's the thing about the irrationality of it. Like, there's 3 lines in any spreadsheet you can do, which is how much did the miners cost you? How much have they mined? How much could you have just bought if you'd have just bought sats? And I don't care if you're Mara or Bitfarms or Hut 8 or Riot. Every single one of them is red on that 3rd line, which means anyone that knows about Bitcoin is retarded if they are investing in the just buy sats. Like, it's nearly always better, and the fact that that's wrong means it is a clown show. Unfortunately, it's not economically rational, which means all the assumptions in the white paper just don't hold out. Bitcoin does continue to work, but it's kind of transitioned into this proof of stake model where it's like, well, why would Foundry or Bitmain ever attack? And at that point, you don't need a blockchain anymore. It's just like, trust them to maintain the ledger. Like that is the security model of proof of stake, right? And we've ended up in that. Like, I get this cope all the time when I come along with this horrifically pessimistic bullshit. I'm sorry, guys. Like just, I'll be clear, right? I think there's nothing else, anything like near as good as Bitcoin. Like, I believe in Bitcoin, and there's nothing else remotely as good. I'm just like focusing on its problems because what else are you going to do? So, like, but when I get in these, people are like, look, Foundry's never going to do that bad thing, and Bitmain's never going to do, like, what are they going to do with the backdoors they have in every single Antminer around the world, responsible for 90% of all the hardware on the network? Why would they ever actually pull that kill switch? I don't know, because the CCP tells them they have to, right? It's not about economically rational behavior. It's just they're allowed to exist. And do we trust any of that hardware? I don't think we do. So for me, I'm just watching it. I'm like, some point the wheel is going to come off this thing. And if everyone's like running sovereign hardware, to some extent, you can pivot and you can change to a new algo, and that saves the whole thing. But can you imagine the disruption of it?
Yeah, it's an emergency action, pull in case of fire kind of switch that we don't want to pull. But the fact that it's there is a nuclear deterrent. Right. So there are emergency action plans that various constituencies in the Bitcoin ecosystem can pull on each other. It's a checks and balances system. But instead of, 3 branches of governance, it has 5, arguably 6. And ultimately, these gigantic mining farms are on a map.
Right. But
and in a hot war, they don't exist on the map.
What do you do?
And so there goes the hash rate. I mean, like, these things will work themselves out, right? Because this isn't just about money. This is about prosperity and poverty. And so when you have the fiatists winning, you end up with poverty, and then you end up with physical revolt. And I'm like, this thing, I view this very like, of course there's going to be these disaster scenarios. Things are going to blow up. Things will reset. There will be emergency action plans. But I love the pieces on the board. Like, I love the balance that Bitcoin creates, the governance balance.
Here's where I push back on that, is because cataclysmic and sudden events do trigger immune reactions like that. But boiling frog syndrome, no one has figured out a way to actually deal with that. If stuff just gets slowly, progressively worse, people just get used to it. Trigger events are great. Like, I would love it.
There's still a limit.
I don't know. In theory, there is. Like, you could do soft invasions, right? You can sort of, controversial, but you can sort of demographically replace an entire continent, and people will just kind of go, oh, nothing's happening, right? Like, you can do stuff like that. Like, but if you invade, then you trigger a response.
I'm with you.
No,
it's subtle.
don't touch
it's
it.
subtle.
Yeah.
There's a subtlety to modern warfare that is interesting. Yeah.
So if anyone has the cure for boiling frog syndrome, that is ultimately what fixes everything, not just Bitcoin.
I mean, the boiling frog, the flip side of the boiling frog is the Trojan horse, right? The Trojan horse is just the boiling frog in the other direction. Yeah. So we don't beat the boiling frog by like detecting and defeating. We use it, right? I think about just a couple of points on like the economics of mining. Like, these big miners losing money. You look at their stock charts, like abysmal, even as Bitcoin prices exploded. And that has hurt everybody else's ability to mine profitably as well, that capital. But I think they're waiting for that moment, like the moment when China banned Bitcoin mining and COVID jammed up supply chains, when suddenly mining was way more profitable than owning Bitcoin, right? So they're just like looking at the probability of a moment like that, and they're judging the expected return, the expected value of a period like that, given the probability and the payoff. Right now, from the pleb miner perspective, you could do the same, but I'm thinking something much more innocent than that. The chart isn't, could I have bought Bitcoin or should I have bought a miner? We know the answer to that. It's been that way for a long time for most of Bitcoin's history. But it's something like, could I buy a heater that doesn't mine Bitcoin and then some Bitcoin, versus could I buy a mining heater? Like, will the premium to buy a mining heater, that premium over a non-mining heater, be best spent buying Bitcoin or buying the mining heater?
And the obvious
that's
answer.
the question, right?
Yeah.
So if for you builders out here, if you can target that as your, if you can answer that question like, yes, you're better off buying my heater than a regular heater and Bitcoin, then a lot of people are going to buy your heaters, because that suddenly that makes that's hard to not to buy.
What I would request of you to do is, like, just as support for the whole initiative of doing this, is like plumbing always breaks on like Christmas Day or New Year's Eve or something, like, and calling out a plumber is like death anyway, and calling out a plumber that knows how to fix a hash board is like, so When are you like putting together a training course for like plumbers that need to know how to fix a PSU on an antminer or something?
In the earlier session,
that's a problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah, that's why I said Anadro has not yet integrated with HVAC for, exactly that reason. The install is difficult and one-off, and the maintenance is difficult. Maintenance is another economy of scale issue, right? Like, you can hire your own maintenance people at a major pubco. You have to roll a ladder down the rack or whatever to get to your machine instead of sending someone out into the field. That's a major difference in the economies of scale, right?
And they don't supply documentation, the ASIC manufacturers. So even if you wanted to create a training program or a service program, you couldn't. So,
but that's your problem to solve. I thought you all were going to solve that.
yeah. Well, that's a good place to wrap. Before we give a round of applause to these gentlemen here, we're going to get into some more technical details tomorrow. Control, firmware, maintenance, immersion versus air versus hydro. But the rest of this evening, we have a happy hour. We've got some finger foods over there. There's plenty of booze in the fridge and in the coolers. And then there's miners in this back room right behind the stage. If you haven't walked all the way around the building, there's another back entrance. I think there's like 15 different tinkered pleb home miners that have been built from old hash boards to take a look at. And definitely get in that hot tub if you'd like to as well. But let's give a round of applause for these super talented gentlemen.